What is up, Design family, and welcome back to another episode of Fit Design TV. As always, so glad to have you guys back on the channel. On today's episode, we'll be looking at how you can actually set yourself apart as a sportswear brand, vying for the divided attention of millions of customers across the globe, and ultimately how you can use the power of effective storytelling in every aspect of your business to captivate your audience and to capture their attention and to gain them as long-term customers. So in this episode, not only will we look at how to do that, but we'll get some base notes. We'll look at what storytelling is, how to actively and effectively implement it into your brand through all areas, your packaging, your product design, your social media, and ultimately we'll look at how this can give you the much needed edge in a very competitive space, because honestly, no brands or very few brands are doing this effectively, and the ones that are crushing it in the game. So if you guys are interested, watch this video. You're about to find out. Welcome to Fit Design TV. Are you interested in sports fashion, design, and manufacturing? Are you establishing your own brand? You're looking good. Anthony, how are we doing? Do you want to? Thank you. Well, you've come to the right place. Lights, camera, action. So what is storytelling? In short, this is the ability to connect with your audience on an emotional level. Most of the connections that we make tend to be very dry and very logical. And as brands, we can get swept up in that idea. We can get swept up in educating our customers on what our unique selling points are and why they should buy from us. But ultimately, people want to be moved. They want to be swept off their feet, and they want to be in a sort of state of euphoria. They want to believe in something that is almost otherworldly. When you tell a story that aligns with your customers, when you tell a story that can capture their interests, that can capture their dreams, that other side of them that still wants to dream, this is where the magic happens. I'll give you guys a very good example of this. A great example is Nike. Nike didn't just start off selling running shoes. What they did was they sold a dream to customers, the dream of excellence, the dream of victory, the dream of competing at the highest level. And this is what effective storytelling can do. It can take your customers out of their minds or out of their heads and encourage them to think in a more emotional way, which is going to lead them to actually want to purchase from you and to be a part of your brand. 2, the second key step in terms of understanding storytelling and how it pertains to your brand and your audience is really defining what your story is and defining what type of story you wish to tell. How do you do this? Well, number one is you really need to understand your audience. You need to understand who's actively interested in your brand. And 2, you need to understand who you are. The story that you tell, ultimately, yes, it should be curated towards your customers. And as a business person, you should know what version of the story is going to appeal to your customers most often or most effectively. But at the same time, you don't want to be lying. You don't want to be posturing as something you're not. So understand who you are. If you're an entrepreneur that is, you come up from a difficult background and you went to the military and you're included or you're interested in XYZ, these different elements, the way that they conjoin ultimately creates the story and creates the background that you can tell as the narrative of who you are, what your brand stands for. And sure, you take that as a basis point. And by understanding who your customers are, you can start to tailor that specific story to capture their attention, to captivate them in a more effective way. So it's about understanding who you are and understanding who your audience is and mixing and matching that to tell the best and most effective story possible. Number 3, now that you've outlined what your story is and who you're trying to tell the story to, it's time to actively integrate your storytelling into all areas of your business. So what are some of these areas? Well, definitely your packaging can be a great place to start. Branding, your advertising, your actual product design, all of these things can bear the story that you wish to get across. How can we use storytelling in our packaging? Well, I'll give you guys an example from my personal brand, Spectre. So as Spectre, we wanted to create a urban sportswear line that was sort of your go-to. It was the type of product that you could use for 90% or 80% of all scenarios you were in. Whether you're commuting to the office, whether you were in the office, whether you're going to the gym, whether you were hanging out with friends. This was a product range that was so low-key and under the radar that it could do pretty much anything, but it was so performant and so accessible that it could be taken into any variety of scenarios, whether it's the gym or whether it was outside of the gym. So the story that we wanted to tell was this sort of under the radar, ghost-like mentality. And we used that idea in the name of the brand. The name of the brand is Spectre, which pertains to the idea of the specter. And we took that idea of the ghost and we sort of leaned into the idea or the concept of the demon or the ghost in the Japanese culture. The simplicity of the brand I wanted to tie it back into the Japanese culture, into that yokai aesthetic or that very minimalistic aesthetic. And we used that and we started to drive that forward in all areas of the business. If you look at the packaging, it has a sleek, stealthy look. It's minimalistic, but it has an urban feel to it. We bring in these digital assets, these heads-up display assets. We bring in these Japanese typographies and these sort of Japanese references to bring the brand closer to the story that we're trying to tell, and ultimately to create a stronger narrative for what we're trying to do. Number 4 is that you must effectively and consistently build a brand narrative through your tone of voice, through the way that you portray yourself on all areas of the business. Look at a brand like Alphalete. Alphalete was founded by Christian Guzman, who's an entrepreneur, he's a fitness entrepreneur, and someone who is extremely motivated to help people to take themselves to the next level. If you look at a lot of the brand copy on their website, on their Instagram, on their social media, how he portrays himself on YouTube, a lot of this is coming from an authentic space of someone who is just trying to find his way in the world and trying to leave his mark and ultimately improve people for the better. So he doesn't use flowery language. He doesn't use very overly feminine language. He doesn't use soft language. He uses language that is very clear. It's very concise. It feels authentic. So it has a level of genuineness to it. A level of genuineness that allows you to relate more closely to the brand and to feel closer to the creator of the brand. All of this is intentional. Even in their motto, learn more, dream more, be more. These are effectively used as a way to get people under the idea, the banner of Alphalete, that if we follow Alphalete, we are following the narrative that we're all trying to improve ourselves for the better. We're trying to strive for more. We're trying to be more. We're trying to ultimately do more in this world. And all of this is a result of the story that is consistently being told and being told time and time again until it becomes gospel, until it becomes something that is irrefutable. And this is what Alphalete has done so effectively and so consistently throughout their business. Number 5 is that it is essential when continuing to build your brand, to build the story of your brand, to use all areas of your business and all areas of social media to continuously portray that narrative. Again, I'll use Alphalete as an example of this. Alphalete does not exist in a vacuum, right? It doesn't just exist on Instagram. It exists through its website. It exists through Instagram. It exists through TikTok, through YouTube. All of these platforms are used effectively in their unique ways to tell different parts of the story. YouTube, for example, gives you a longer and more in-depth peek into what the behind the scenes are like for Alphalete. Gives you an in-depth peek into what Christian's life is like. But it does that in a way that is not only entertaining and cinematic, but it gives you enough depth to understand him in a more holistic format. Versus something like Instagram, where the Alphalete page is a sales page, but it's also a portfolio page. It's a place to see what the brand aesthetic looks like, the brand photography, the brand colors, how the models look, and just bring in the visual aesthetic and the visual appeal in a way that's concise and to the point. But then you look at TikTok, which is a lot more informal, it's a lot more humorous, it's a lot more the type or the side of the brand that doesn't take itself so seriously. Then you look at the Instagram Reels section, which is a lot more hardcore, it's a lot more advertising focused, it's a lot more polished. It shows you what the brand is capable of from a storytelling perspective in a way that's a lot more upscale. So each of these brand platforms or each of these platforms are being used to their maximum advantage to tell different versions of the story, different parts of the story that may not be suitable for other platforms or other social media platforms. So be aware of what platform you're posting on and use each platform to tell a different version or a different shade of the story. Number 6 is you need to effectively use your product design to continuously or to actually expand on that story. So let's go back to Spectre, our urban sportswear brand, a brand intended to cater to 90% of the modern man's daily needs, whether it's commuting to the office or whether it's going to the gym or hanging out with friends. The way that the products were designed was taking that customer in mind and using him as an avatar for how the products should be enjoyed, how they should be actually used on a day-to-day basis. So our everyday t-shirt was designed to be simple, minimalistic, but with sharp touches here and there that could give that product a flair, something that you couldn't get anywhere else. The fabric that was used was high-end, it was breathable, it was sweat-wicking, it was anti-odor, it was something that you could use on a day-to-day basis without any worry about having to clean it or to wash it, or if you were going to stink, or if it was going to grab microbes or bacteria. So that idea was ingrained in not only the way that the visuals of the brand looked like, not only in the way that it was advertised, but also in the ways that the products were designed. Last but definitely not least, when it comes to effective storytelling, is aligning with the right personalities, the right influencers to tell what message or to spread your message and to spread your narrative. At the end of the day, if you only align with influencers that have a high let's just say, follower account, or have high reach or high sort of influence on their specific niche. Sure, that may create initial conversions, that may create interest in your brand, but if the person that you're aligning yourself with isn't a natural part or an extension of the brand or the story that you're trying to tell, well, there's a weird dissonance there. People can pick it up immediately. They may have a fewer follower count, but if they're the people that you truly believe embody what your brand stands for, believe me, in the long run, not only will they grow, but it will be a sort of true and synergetic coexistence between you as a brand and the people that you're using or that you're partnering with to actually promote your brand and what you're about. Well, guys, that is it. That is a wrap on this episode. This is a unique tip that I highly recommend you do not underestimate the power and the effectiveness of good quality storytelling. A story is something that you build page by page, but believe me, when you look back at this in the future, you'll be proud of what you built and the story that you've told. Use storytelling to your advantage and start today. You start with a simple snap, a simple story, a simple post on Instagram. Each of these posts creates a word in your book and a word in your story. And over the time, you'll find yourself with a full narrative that is authentic and true. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider smashing a massive thumbs up. It really does help us out. It keeps us motivated to keep creating this content for you on a day-to-day basis. Guys, until next time, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Fit Design TV. Until next week's episode, stay awesome.